Primarily, we got Chris Jones and Craig Doherty will be our our lead trainers this week. They'll also be around to help with production and ongoing support. So welcome them. And without further ado, when we get into our, I'll just do a brief introduction here. Kind of what we're going to cover today. We'll do a real brief review of overall project and timeline. I think probably most of the folks on the call are pretty well aware of what we're doing. We'll talk about the benefits. Then the real meat of it will be the contracts walkthrough and basically we're doing a full walkthrough, demonstration / training, and then we'll wrap up with some recap of key points. Talk about ongoing tools and support and processes for go live, and then directions and plans for next week. Overall, where we at in the project? So we're in this, what we're doing here with contracts and sourcing and also spend analytics is what we're calling phase 2 of the overall CSUBUY program. Last summer we put in the marketplace, so we replaced the existing marketplace where you have just for P card shopping. So that's where all the campuses now have access to various supplier websites through the marketplace. So that represents our base, our base of the application. So now we'll be adding additional modules with contracts and sourcing. Contracts is our first deployment, and then it'll be live next week. And then we'll follow shortly after with sourcing. And then in November, we'll, for those users who have access to it, we'll have spend analytics. If all goes well, and if things are approved from the Cabo in January, then we expand to a phase 3, which will be kind of the rest of the Jagger suite, would encompass some e-procurement, invoicing, so we have requisitions, POs, and also full supplier management. So what you'll see today is we do have, we'll do some supplier management within Jagger in the near term. That'll be mainly to provide enough information that we have our, what we equate to contract parties or suppliers to invite to sourcing events. What are the key benefits? So one of the things we had identified early, and one of the big pain points we had from the old system was with search capabilities. So that's been one of our big focuses. It just, so between a combination of just out of the box Jagger, how we've configured it, and additional metadata we've captured on the contract headers, all should enable a very improved search experience for everybody. There's also a very discrete search method now for identifying things like what's a system-wide agreement versus a single campus or multiple campus agreement. There's a couple of constructs in Jagger we'll review that refer to as a work group, and that is when you'll hear the word work group, that equates to campus. There'll be some automation, and that'll develop over time. So you'll see we have various contract types and templates that we'll be creating. And these templates just allow you to jump to, lost all my words today already. It was too long of a meeting. But the templates will enable you to load standard agreements that are used by all the campuses and expedite the process of creating contracts. There's also the ability to review internally and externally for folks to redline and also compare different versions of agreements. So when contracts are redlined by suppliers and they come back, there's some nice automation to view the differences and see what's changed and accept those. We'll also use Adobe Sign for electronic signature. Some campuses, I don't know if I'm not exactly sure if the folks on today's call use DocuSign, but there's also a possibility to use DocuSign if your campus already has that. again, some other key features, just sort of the bread and butter, application things, and some user-friendly interface. It'll be consistent across the different modules. So just again, we're looking for a better experience, and searchability are the key takeaways. Before we get into what the actual system looks like, couple points to ground us. Our approach for going live is that we want to put the key functionality together, get the system configured, get it out there and available, and then over time continue to expand the libraries, as it were. So we'll start out with a list of supported contract types. Over time, as we identify additional types or different additional templates, we'll add those on an ongoing basis. Some example of where that would happen is we have some additional working groups looking at things like leases, construction, and public works. So some of these different things require maybe additional metadata to be captured. So we're working to finalize those, and we'll deploy those as they evolve. What's still being developed? Again, we have additional templates like I just discussed, and then you'll see other library items. So we'll get into some different clauses and obligations and some other things that we can start out with some basics, and those will expand. Then last point here again is this should be, I think, was a little bit different than currently. So you'll see that there's a couple different, in addition, ways to tag your contracts. There is a free form name of a contract when you create one you can add, but there's also for consistency, there's an auto numbering that'll be consistent across all the contracts, and that's kind of smart coded. That'll include some other information again to help with search. So within the contract numbers, it'll be identify the campus and dates and some other things. And that is, with that, we'll get right into the system. So I'll hand it over to Chris Jones, and this will walk through the full life cycle of a contract. And just one other note, we do have, and we'll, at the end of this, we'll be sending out, and everything you're going to see, we do have quick reference guides and job aids that cover. So don't worry about if you don't capture everything. We also have several recordings, and I'll be recording this session. We'll be recording this session as well, but we have several good recordings now of walkthroughs of each piece of this. So we'll have plenty of support for once we're live.
All right, great.
There we go.
So I'll go ahead and share my screen, and we'll take a look into the system. So as you can see, I've already logged into the system. So you'll have a link to log in the system. Many of you probably have already logged into the test environment for that marketplace purpose. But now you'll notice that after you've contacted the core team and let us know that you want to be a tester in the system and given those access and rights, you'll be given a new dashboard. So you'll either have this updated contracts dashboard, or you might have this updated sourcing dashboard. And essentially from these dashboards, you can see certain information. So for this case, we're going to go back into the contracts dashboard. And in the contracts dashboard, you're able to see, the contracts, a summary of the contracts that are in the system. You can look at that by contract manager or status or type. So you can filter that down. You can also look based on whether the contracts are active for shopping or all or not active for shopping. So you have some configurability in there. On the right hand side of your dashboard, you'll notice that you'll be able to you'll be able to search for contracts. So you can search by contract party, by name, by number. You also have access to an advanced search capability to find contracts by additional searching criteria. Below that, you'll notice that there's a quick link section here, so you can quickly create a brand new contract. You can add, or you can view your saved searches. You can see contracts that you need to approve. So there's some access to different quick links here. But below that, you'll also notice there is a CSU supplier request form. So if you need a new supplier added to the system, what you'll do is you'll click on this link here. And this is the case for both the sourcing and the contracting side. So we've got some instructions here for you to look at. You'll click next. If you're uploading lots and lots of suppliers, you need a lot of suppliers added, you can pop those into a quick Excel document and then add that as an attachment. If you just need to add one supplier, what you can do is just fill out this quick question section here, right? So you could fill out name of the supplier. If you happen to have the DBA tax ID number, you could put that in. And then you can put in some contact information, email address information, and then list out the campuses this supplier might be used for. And once you've filled out all that information, what you would do is you'd submit it. And then ultimately that would route to David and Claire, and they would take care of adding that supplier for you. And they'll let you know whenever they've got the supplier available for you to use. So just really quickly, that's how you'll go in and request a new supplier in the system temporarily until we get into phase 3. So once we get into phase 3 of the project, this all will likely change, and you won't need to submit this supplier request form, and we'll have a different process for adding suppliers. But just know from now, from this point until we get into phase 3, if you need a brand new supplier added to the system for sourcing purposes, or for to add as a second party to your contract, you'll utilize this form to do that. Below that in the dashboard, we got some contract alerts. So the system will alert you when you have expiring contracts that are upcoming or recently expired contracts. So it's good to always go down and check the contract alerts just to make sure you know of any upcoming contracts that you need to review. Before we get into actually creating a contract, what I'd like to do is show you how to link your account in this system with the Jagger Word app. So you're going to do that through a key that you create in your user profile. So to do that, what you're going to do is you're going to click on the little user profile icon, and then you're going to click.
Hey, Chris, just again, one more bit of context for the group. So the Word app it's actually a Microsoft Word plugin. So that's just going to enable you to have some enhanced functionality within Microsoft Word that connects to Jagger. And as he's going through these steps, don't worry, because we do have a job aid that'll walk you through this as well. But it is something everyone will have to do in production once it gets started.
And Kurt, this is Dwight. Just real quick, some folks are having some issues putting the add-in in. If you do, you just reach out to me. I will try to work with your IT group and with Rise Now to get the product working for you. So this is Dwight Martin.
Dwight.
Yeah, and we have seen that there's some due to campus IT policies. There's some are limited from adding plugins into Word. So yeah, let Dwight know.
We'll get it resolved. Don't worry about that. I'll work with you.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep. So we'll go ahead and view my profile. And then I'm going to click into App Activation Codes under User Profile and Preferences. And I'm going to click Add Microsoft Word. And so if you just need to add one device, right? So you have a laptop that you author contracts at the office, and maybe sometimes you bring it home and author contracts at home, then you'll just need to add this once. If you use multiple devices to author contracts, so maybe you have a desktop in the office, and then you have a laptop at home that you also author contracts on, then you'll need to add an app activation code for each device, right? So it's device dependent. So you can give your device a name, and then if you're doing this yourself, then you're going to answer no, because you're going to get this activation code pop up right on the screen. So I'm going to click Add Device, and it's going to give me this activation code, and I can use this activation code to link my account in the system with the Jagger Word app for up to 72 hours. And don't worry, you only have to make this link one time. So after you make the link, you won't have to continue to do it over and over again. But what I'm going to do is open up Word. And we'll just get into Word here. And then the first time that you do this, what you'll need to do is install the Jagger Word app into your ribbon. So to do that, what you're going to do is go into Insert here. You're going to click Get Add-ins. And then you're going to search for Jagger. Okay. Once you search for Jagger, you're going to see these 4 options. You're never going to use the EU environment, so just never use either of these 2. If you're doing this in the test environment, you'll use this grayed out option here for the J for Jagger. If you're doing this in the production environment, you'll use this red J Jagger. So the difference is this one says Jagger contract authoring, and this one says Jagger contract authoring for the test environment. So if you're doing this in the test environment, you'll click Add. And then if you go back to home, you'll notice that now you have the Jagger Word app in your ribbon. So you can click on this little Jagger app ribbon icon. And what you're going to do is you're going to put in your app activation code. So if you had copied it previously, all you have to do is paste it in and click activate. And whenever you set up the Jagger Word app activation code, you would have had to put in a password. So you're going to use that password here to make that connection and sign in. And now I have successfully linked my account in the system with the Jagger Word app inside of Word. So that's how you're going to make that linkage, and you should only need to do that one time for each device and each environment. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get out of Word, and we'll get back into the application. And let's take a look at how we can create a brand new contract. So we can do that in a few ways. One way is to click Create New Contract in this quick link section. Another way to do that is if you scroll over Contracts in the left-hand menu, you can scroll over Contracts again and then click Create New Contract. So either way takes you to the exact same place. Okay, you're going to give the contract a name. Okay, so we'll give you some aids on how to correctly name your contract. But what you want to keep in mind here is you want to make your contract name specific enough so that you're able to pick it out of a list, right? So you don't want to name every contract master enabling agreement or statement of work or something like that. You want to make the name specific enough to where if you just saw it from a list, you'd say, oh yeah, I remember that one, or oh yeah, that's the one I'm looking for. So next you're going to choose a contract type. So as you use this system more and more, you'll simply be able to start typing the name. So maybe goods is my contract type, and then select it. So the first time you use this, though, you may not know the contract type name. So what you'll end up doing is clicking on this little magnifying glass. And it's going to show you the list of different contract types here, and you'll select it from the list. So in this case, I'm going to select goods. And yep, one second. I'll select goods. And then for the majority of you, you'll only be tied to one work group as a contract administrator or contract manager. So this may be pre-populated for you, this work group. If it's not pre-populated for you, you may be in the chancellor's office. So you can either start typing in the name of the work group and then select it. Or if you don't, if you don't want to, you can also click on this little magnifying glass, and this will give you the full range of work groups that you have access to. So just FYI, the work group structure is a way for us to essentially limit the access levels, right? So we don't want necessarily somebody in Sonoma creating contracts in Monterey Bay, for instance. So we have that method of limiting access to who can create contracts by work group structure. But I'm going to go ahead and just select Sonoma State University. And then just FYI, we're in the process of gathering requirements for and building out templates, but we don't have a bunch of templates built out right now. Once we get your main documents, so this would be the actual legal documents, once we get templates for those built out in the system, you'll be able to select the templates here. But right now we're still in the process of kind of figuring out what we want for templates. So this is actually a great opportunity for you to come to the core team and let us know if you've got some great templates to utilize. We can incorporate those now into templates that we would use in the future. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you've got some great contract templates, please bring those to our attention. But just as an FYI, we'll be building those out in the future. So if you have one of those main document templates, you can select it from here. You can click the magnifying glass to see a list and select it. We don't, like I said, we don't have any built out for goods, but I do have one built out for services. I can just show you real quickly. So if we choose services and Sonoma here, I can select the main document template. So this is what it's going to look like. This is just kind of a placeholder template to show you a little bit later, but that's how you would select it. Now, obviously, if you are if you're using the supplier's paper or you're using a template that's not built out in the system, what you're going to do is you're just going to leave this main document template blank. All right. Once you've made your selections on this page, you'll go ahead and click Create Contract. And now you're going to start filling out contract information, right? So you'll notice that the contract number has automatically populated for us in the system. And the work group structure is going to, or the work group code is going to automatically populate in our work group, in our contract number. So I created this out of Sonoma, and you'll notice that the code for Sonoma is embedded in our contract number, which is nice. We've got our contract name here, type, work group. You can also designate a parent contract. So if this was a kind of a subcontract underneath another contract, what you could do is select your parent contract here. So to do that, you can click into it and start typing in the contract number and select it. But you also have the opportunity again to click on the little magnifying glass, and this will allow you to use additional searching criteria to find the contract you need to. So I could select it, and now this would become the parent contract to the contract I'm currently authoring. Next, you have options to use electronic signature, yes or no. So you'll notice if I choose no here and I saved it, this e-signature setting page in the wizard would totally go away. But in this initial scenario, I'm going to show you how to utilize the electronic signature. So I'm going to say yes for this. Below that, we have an option to show this in the supplier portal or not. So if your supplier was eventually invited to manage a portal in the system and you made this contract available to them, they'd be able to see some of the contract documents, which you specify later on. So again, we'll show you how all that works in just a bit. Next, we can designate a value for the contract. So what is the overall value of this contract in the lifespan of the contract? So I can say maybe this one is $40,000. Okay, I can designate a summary for the contract. So to do that, I can click Edit Summary, and I can start typing in a summary for this contract. Okay, and click Done. And if I scroll down a little bit, I can designate the parties to the contract. So if I needed to, I could remove California State University as our first party and swap it out with an auxiliary if I was creating a if I was authoring this contract on behalf of an auxiliary, or I can leave the first party as is, and I can select a second party rather for the contract. So if I know the name of the second party, which presumably I would, I can start typing in the name of the second party, or I can just click search, and that's going to find every second party in the system. So if I wanted to search for ADC partners, I can start typing ADC, click search, and that's going to narrow down my results to just the suppliers that have ADC in their contract party name. Once I've found my second party, I can select them and then click select second party. And then if they have contacts in the system, I can select them from the list here, but you don't have to, you can leave that blank. And then the same thing with addresses. If they have an address, you can select an address here if you want to, or you can leave it blank and click done. And now I've added my second party to my contract. We scroll down a little bit lower, we're going to see the dates and renewals associated with this contract. So there, you'll notice that by default, the contract lists the time zone as Pacific Standard Time. If you need to, you can change that and say that this contract maybe is Eastern Standard or Central Standard. You can designate a start date for the contract. So I can say, well, this contract is actually going to start on Friday, October 2nd. And you can even designate a time for the contract as well if you want to. So if you click on this little time icon, you can scroll down and you can select a time for the contract. So I can say, okay, it's going to start at 1 p.m. So not every contract is going to be that specific, but you can be that specific if you want to. You can also type these in as well. You just have to make sure it's typed in the proper format. But a lot of times people find it easier to go ahead and just select the date from the date calendar picker. If you're looking to author a contract where the end date is far out in the future, you can click on this little icon here, and this will take you out further in the further out, and you can select the year. So I can select, okay, this one's going to end in 2025 on October 31st, for instance. So you can author contracts that do have an expiration date and specify that expiration date, or you can select no expiration date, and that would leave this as sort of an evergreen contract that would never expire.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
This is Yvonne from the CEO. On the expiration date, would that trigger a notification like 30, 60, 90 days before that expiration date ends for the person that is generating the contract to either review it, renew it, cancel it, talk to the suppliers? Is there any triggers that does?
Hi, Yvonne. Yeah, great question. So there absolutely can be. It's a decision that the contract administrator is going to make a little bit further down in the process. So you'll be able to select which notifications you want to go out and then how far in advance you want those notifications to go out.
And then I have one more question. When you're selecting the supplier, the email that this goes out to, sometimes we're dealing with multiple people from one company, and we have to add a new email address. Can we do this here now, or do we have to add a whole new profile into the system?
Yeah, great question. So you can add multiple contacts for an individual supplier. So if you click on Edit Contacts here, you'll have the option to add a contact, and you can add contacts here if you need to.
Perfect. Thank you.
And that's a good point. So a little more on the supplier. So I'll cover this again later, but we are preloading production with around 200 or 300 suppliers based on recent activity and things. However, we aren't loading contacts for those. So even if the supplier you want to use is in the system right now, you'll in all likelihood need to add contact information.
Yeah, in fact, let me go ahead and I'll
And are those, I'm sorry, I have another question. And are those contacts standalone for this particular module, or if we are working on issuing a PO, would those same emails be populated on where to send the POs to? I know I'm talking down the line when we have the PO options.
Yeah, so right now in phase 2, there's not going to have any connection at all. Potentially in phase 3, when you have suppliers register in the tool, you'll give them the ability to designate a PO distribution email address. So it's not necessarily tied to the contact. It's a specific email address that they'll set up related to an ordering address. So it's kind of a different email address, but your suppliers will have the opportunity to select that later on in phase 3 if everything goes as planned.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, any other questions before we continue on? Nope. All right, great. So under start date, you can see that you can also designate that you want the start date to automatically update on execution. So you might put this out in the future, but you might say, well, really what I want to happen is as soon as the last person signs it, I want that to be the start date of the contract, not just a hard-coded date. So you can check this box and have that start date automatically update to the executed date. Below that, we've got some review dates and renewal dates. What the review date will allow you to do is simply select a date that you want the system to email you and tell you to review the contract, right? So that's all this functionality does. It will send you an email and it'll send you kind of a generic message telling you to review the contract. So you can make that a one-time review if you want to, and all this functionality is optional. You don't have to use any of the renewals or review dates. You can select a date for that to happen, and if you want it to be just a one-time email, you just select the date, and you wouldn't select any renewal terms or reviews terms or review remainings. If you wanted the system to consistently ask you to review the contract on a schedule, then what you would do is you would select the initial review date. So we'd say, okay, initially I want you to ask me to review the contract on April the 15th of 2021. And then you can also select renewal term and review term and review remaining. So you could say, okay, I want you to ask me to review this every 6 months for up to 3 times, right? So what this would do is the system would first ask you to send you an email to review the contract on this date, and then 6 months later, it asks you to review again. 6 months later, it asks you to review it again. 6 months later, it asks you to review it again. So you can set up a schedule to have set up the schedule to have the system automatically remind you to review the contract.
Hey, Chris,
Now,
Chris,
yep.
can we make this field mandatory? Like if I wanted to make this field mandatory for the CO, can we do that without impacting other campuses?
Unfortunately not. You can't make the review mandatory just because there's going to be some there's going to be some simple contracts where you don't really need to review it, or short-term contracts. So we can't make it mandatory, but you could look at that in a review, right? So if you have a review process, different people in the organization can look at how you set the contract and you can review it.
Yeah, to be honest with you, we just keep going on this. There's a lot of contracts that expire that we either don't get notification from the current system, right? Or it was never entered. And so I want to, maybe this is something I'll touch base with David a little bit further down. This is something that I would really like to have it mandatory, so that way we eliminate that problem that we're having.
And Yvonne, if you just wait a second, there's another place where you can do this.
No, I want to know everything now, David.
Just hold on. We're going to have questions at the end.
Yeah.
All right, I'll wait. I'll start writing them down.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and this is sort of the older functionality in the system, this review date. I'm going to show you in a little bit how you can set up obligations, and the obligations are a similar set of functionality, but they also allow you to tell yourself what the review is all about, what the obligation is all about. You can set up a schedule, and you can also set them to mark as complete or not, and have them remind different people in the organization. So a lot more functionality in the obligations. The review is just, it's very simple to set up, but it's not as feature rich, but we'll go through the obligations in just a bit. Okay. Next, we also have renewals. So what renewals will do is it will allow you to renew the contract for a given period of time. So if you have a contract where its initial length of period is maybe 5 years, like this contract is, but you wanted the option to renew it for additionally 2 years, and in each period would be a 1-year renewal period. What you could do is under renewals, you would say, okay, I want to have up to 2 renewal options, and the term of each renewal would be 1 year, right? So you can set that up, and then right before the contract expires, what you would do is you'd have a contract action, and that would allow you to renew the contract for that 1-year period. So that's really nice if you have optional renewals. You can set them up in the system, and then you can choose to renew the contract or not. And then you can have this be an auto renewal or not. So what the auto renewal will do is if you say yes to this, the system will automatically create a draft auto renewal for you, but you'll still need to go in and submit it for approval. But so this is nice if it's kind of a mandatory renewal. You can start the drafting process for yourself automatically, and then you just need to finish it. So this is kind of a yes or no option that you have available. Again, you don't have to take advantage of the auto renewals, so you can leave these blank and say, no, I don't want to do an auto renewal here. Okay, so let's move on to some of the custom questions that we've configured just for California State University. So the first custom question here is whether or not this is auxiliary, stateside, or both. So you'll just select that from the radio buttons. Next, we are selecting whether this is a multi-campus agreement. So your options here are single campus, multi-campus, or system-wide. So if you choose single campus, you don't have to select anything else. If you choose multi-campus, you're going to select the campuses that are involved. And then if you choose system-wide, essentially what will happen is it's going to route to David, and he's going to just take a look at the contract and make sure that everything is fine to proceed on with a system-wide contract authored out of one of the campuses. So typically those are authored out of the chancellor's office, but if you've been given the authorization, you can select that, and just David will review it before it goes out. Okay. Next we have whether or not this is a diverse supplier. So it's asking if they're a small business, DVBE, or micro. So if you choose no here, that's all you need to select. If you choose yes, then you're going to select the diversity classification. So you might say, okay, this particular supplier or second party is a small business and is disabled veteran business enterprise, or disadvantaged business, disabled veteran. Yep. So, and then next you'll put the total contract amount in words. So remember, you put the total contract amount in value, like a dollar value, a monetary value here. One of the things that we're considering in the future is if we do build out these templates for you, the main document templates can automatically populate with information that you put in here. So what we might end up doing is pulling in the contract value and maybe the contract value in words and putting that into a main document template. So that's the reason why this total contract amount in words is here.
Did we lose Chris?
Oops, sorry about that.
Oh, sorry,
All
it
right,
got really quiet.
Yeah, moving down, you can add additionally, you can add accounting codes if you want to. The accounting codes are optional; they're not required, so you can choose to not include those as well. as well as a purchase order. Sorry, something's in my way. Okay. On the next page, we can have alternate language. So if you are using one of our pre-built templates, and the pre-built template has alternate language built into it, this is where you'll be able to select the alternate language. So you would be able to say, okay, you know, this particular contract maybe is only medium risk instead of high risk. So we can swap out clauses in the contract template. I know you're having to kind of envision this, but you'd be able to swap in and out clauses based on the scenario that the contract applies to. So we don't have that built into the system right now, but just know in the future, when we build out your contract templates, if we have the need for those alternate language clause swaps, this is where you do it in the system. Okay, if we click next, here we see the attachments that are related to the contract document. So remember, I did not create this from a template in the system. So I'll need to go ahead and upload a main document template here. So to do that, I can click on this button here to upload main document template, and I can select upload main document. And I'm going to select a file. So I'm sure we've all uploaded documents into a website before. So let me go ahead and just do that really quickly. All right, so once you've uploaded the document, you'll determine whether you want this to print with the full contract, yes or no, and also if you want it to show up in the supplier portal or not. So of course, your main document is going to print with the full contract. What that means essentially is you can have documents associated with the contract record that don't go out for signature and are not part of the full print order, right? Will not be built into a big PDF document. So if you've got internal notes or kind of internal documents that you wouldn't want to go out for signature, then you would select no for print with full contract. Okay, so we'll go ahead and save our changes. And here I can upload any other attachments as well, right? So if I wanted to add another attachment, I can click, add attachment. And I can, of course, select the file. And then after I select the file, again, I can choose whether I want this to print with the full contract or not. So if I say yes here, and I say I want it to be the last document in my list of documents, what would happen is at the end of this process, the system is going to compile all the documents that we say we want in the full print order into a big PDF document, and that's what essentially would be sent out for signature, right, in the electronic signature. So just kind of keep that in mind. You got to decide, okay, is this a document that's just going to be internal, or is this something that would go out for signature? If it's going to go out for signature, you'd want this to print with the full contract. Okay, so I'll go ahead and say no for this one, and I'll save my changes. You can decide if you want to show this in the supplier portal, yes or no, and you can decide if you want this to be available in the contract summary page. We'll go ahead and save changes. Next, what I'd like to do is show you how you can edit the document both with the Jagger Word app and without the Jagger Word app. So to open up the main document, there are 3 ways to do it. You can always do it in this left-hand menu. So you'll notice even if I'm on a different page, I can open up the main document here. But you can also open up the main document or the other documents by clicking on the links here, or you can go to actions and you can click on download. So there's lots of ways of getting at the main document. We'll go ahead and click open main document here. And then I'm going to open up the main document. And for this first round, I'm going to use the Jagger Word app to make updates to my contract record, my contract document. So I'm going to click enable editing. And then I'm going to show the Jagger Word app. And then I'm going to go ahead and start making my changes, right? So Sorry, I need to move that. I'll find it, and I'm going to remove some of the verbiage here. Okay, so I'll just remove that. And then whenever I'm done, I can go ahead and check in my changes. Oh, before I check in my changes, you also, if you have access to the Jagger Word app, you have the ability to add in a pre-approved clauses, right? So what I could do is I could insert a new page here if I wanted to. And I could go to my approved clauses and I could search for my clauses, and then I could insert them if I wanted to. So there we go. I have, insert, and it could just be one single clause, or it could be a big list of clauses. It just depends on the clause that's been selected. So as you can see, I've inserted this entire section of a pre-approved clause or clauses by just selecting it from here. So it's a really handy feature of having the Jagger Word app, is that you can insert pre-approved clauses from a clause library that your administrators have built out for you. But I'm going to go ahead and just remove that for now. And I'll go ahead and check in my changes. And then you can decide if you want to keep the document checked out to yourself. So if you're still going to go in and start, other internal review rounds, or designate your electronic signers, you can keep it checked out to yourself for now. And you can also designate the changes. You can tell the system what changes you've made. Okay, and then you'll click OK. And now I have successfully checked in my changes, but I've still got the contract record checked out to myself. So let me close this, and you don't have to save it if you're using the Jagger Word app. And now if I refresh the page, we're going to see that I'm on to version 2 of the document. And what you can do is you can go to Actions, and you go to Version History. And you can compare the different versions of the document, right? So I can go ahead and compare this. And if I scroll down, I'll see the changes highlighted in yellow. So the system will automatically allow me to compare the different versions of the document. And we can see, okay, in version 1, I had additional verbiage under severability. And in the latest version of the document, that's all been taken out of. So the system will automatically keep track of changes for you, and you can compare those changes. So next, let's take a look at how we can update the document if we don't have access to the Jagger Word app. So if I'm the contract manager or administrator, again, I can still download the document. And I would open it up. Now what I would do, of course, I would still enable for editing. And I can go in and make a change. So maybe we will remove some of the verbiage here. This time I'm going to have to go to File, and I'm going to have to save this on my desktop or to a drive I have somewhere. So I'll go ahead and just save that on my desktop. Okay, so now I have successfully saved it on my desktop, and I can go ahead and close it. Now what you would have to do if you don't have access to the Jagger Word app is you'd go to Actions, and then you click on Upload a New Version, and then you'd select the file from your computer. And then after you've selected it, of course, you could give a note. And then you can save changes. And now I have successfully saved another version of the document, right? So the system is still going to track the version history. So I can go to version history and I can compare, version 3 with version 2. And that's going to show me the changes between those two versions of the document. So that's how, as a contract administrator or a contract manager, you can make changes to the contract document and how the system will track those changes. Next, let's take a look at obligations and how to build obligations in the system. So we can click next here. We can just click on the menu item for obligations. And from here, we can go ahead and add our obligations. So when the core team builds out an obligation library for you, you'll be able to select obligations from the library, but you can also add obligations from scratch. So to do that, you'll click Add New Obligation. And essentially what the obligations allow you to do is a similar functionality to reviews that we saw earlier. So it'll allow you to trigger a notification that will go to one or more people about something that needs to be done during the course of this contractual agreement, right? So you could have insurance requirements that you need fulfilled. You could have a release of material that you need to remind yourself about during the course of the obligation of the contract. You could have a milestone in a services contract where you need to pay somebody a certain amount of money if they maybe aren't going to send you an invoice and you just need to remember to pay them. You could create that as an obligation. So there's lots of different reminders during the course of a contractual contractual agreement that you'll need to remind yourself about as an obligation. So for the obligation, you're going to give it a name. So we'll call this one insurance reminder. And then you're going to give it a description. Okay. And then you can tag it optionally, but you don't have to tag it. You can leave that blank. And then you can decide whether or not you need to collect a document as part of fulfilling this obligation, right? So this is a good example of where you would say, yeah, I need to collect an actual copy of the second party's insurance in order to mark this as complete. And then you'd upload a copy of that insurance document when you're doing this. Some obligations don't require documentation, so you might uncheck that for certain obligations. And then you're going to designate the frequency of this obligation. So sometimes it's just going to be a one-time obligation. So you just need to collect this, or you just need to mark this obligation as complete one time. Other times it might be a recurring obligation. So you might say, okay, it's not just on a certain date or on the end date of the contract, it's actually recurring. So you might say, okay, once every 6 months, I need to trigger this obligation on, the second Wednesday of the month. And I need to start collecting this obligation on the start date, and it needs to end on the end date or, end after a certain number of occurrences. So there's a nice schedule that you can set up here. And then, oops, there we go. And then once you've set up your schedule, what you'll do is you'll start selecting who's going to be notified about this obligation, right? So we'll click next. And now we're going to select who's going to be notified. So we'll click add new. And we're going to say that our first party owner, the contract manager, is going to be asked to keep up with this obligation. And their task is going to be well, right? So their task or note is going to be, please collect insurance documents from the second party. So this could be your first party owner, or it could be a first party stakeholder. If you're doing a first party stakeholder, they just need to have an account in the system. So they'll need to, create an account in this system, that they don't have to have a specific role in the system. And just FYI, this task or note is going to come in the email that they receive. So they're going to get an email saying, letting them know that they have an obligation that needs to be fulfilled. And this task or note will tell them what the obligation is all about. Okay, and then you're able to dictate which notifications they're going to receive. So should they receive an advance notice, so like 60 days out, 30 days out? Should they receive a due date notice, so the day that it's due? Should they start receiving past due notices if they don't, if it doesn't get taken care of? And then most of the time, you're not going to send these complete notices, but you could decide to send them. So you can add one stakeholder or you can add multiple stakeholders. So you can click Save and add another. So I could notify my contract manager, but I could also notify the second party. So I could pick a second party person like Alex, and I can tell Alex as part of the system, right? I could tell Alex that he needs to provide the insurance documents to the contract manager. So the system would send out an email to Alex as well, letting him know that he needs to provide the insurance documents. So Alex would, essentially send those documents to the contract manager, and the contract manager would go into the system and mark the obligation as complete once they've gotten those insurance documents. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and just close this and not add Alex. Sorry about that. Yep, not going to add Alex. And then you're also, if you're sending out the advance notices, you're able to dictate how far in advance you're sending out those notices, right? So you can say, okay, I want to send out a notice 60 days out in advance, 30 days out in advance, and 10 days out in advance, right? Or you could say, well, I don't want to send 3 notices, advance notices. I just want to send 2. So you could leave this one blank. And now the system would send a notice out to the contract manager 30 days before this is due and 60 days before it was due. Okay, so once you've got that all set up, you can go ahead and save changes. And you'll see that the system automatically creates a schedule for these obligations. Does that make sense to everybody, how it sets up the schedule? And then as the contract manager, once you have got these complete, what you're going to do is you're going to go to Actions, and then you can go ahead and mark them complete when they've been completed. So you can cancel the occurrence if you don't need it, or you can go to Properties or Mark it complete. And you can specify a completion date and a note, and you can attach a document. And then, of course, if you need to adjust the series, you can adjust the series. All right, next, let's move on to review rounds. So what the review rounds allow you to do is send the document out to either internal reviewers, so people inside of the CSU organization, or to external reviewers, maybe the second party for them to review the contract language, or to a third-party legal organization that you need to review the language. So to start an internal review round, what you're going to do is click Create Internal Review Round. And then you're going to add the reviewers that need to review the contract. So you'll click Add Reviewer. And you can search for your reviewer. I'm going to search for local. And then you'll select your reviewer and click Save Changes. So you can have one reviewer in an internal review round. You can have 5, 10, 15 internal reviewers in an individual review round. And then you can also have multiple internal review rounds. So if you had the risk department take a look at this in round 1, you could have them look at it, adjust the language, and then after that review round, you could start another review round with legal, right? And then after legal took a look at it, you could start an external review round. So you can have as many of these review rounds as you need, and you can designate as many reviewers as you need. But in this case, I'm just going to have one reviewer, and then I'm going to go ahead and begin the round. And you can give the reviewer a message if you want to. And you can click Begin Internal Review. Okay, so this will, if the internal reviewer has signed up for their notification preferences, this will essentially send them an email notification, and they will be able to, they'll get an email letting them know that they're responsible for an internal review round. So they can go into the system and interact with the contract. But I'm actually already logged in as that that other user here. So if I share my screen again, here I am logged in as as the internal reviewer. And you can see that I've signed up for not only email notifications, so I just got the email, but I'm also signed up for these in-app notifications. So the in-app notifications allow you to see notifications in the system without necessarily getting emails. So as you can see here, I can click on the in-app notification, and that's going to take me into the contract that I need to review. Okay. So now I can see the contract, and what I can do is I can go to actions here and I can check out the document. And then what I can do is I can open up the main document and start making any adjustments that I need to. So this particular user also has the Jagger Word app. So I'll show you how you can utilize, how your internal reviewers can utilize the Jagger Word app to make their changes. So we'll go ahead and enable editing. And again, if this internal reviewer has the Jagger Word app, what they can do is click on the little Jagger authoring icon. And you can see that we currently have the document checked out to ourselves. And they can go in and start making changes to the document. So maybe they go through this and they say, I'm going to get rid of this. Right? So they can get rid of that. If they have the Jagger Word app, they also have access to the clause library, so they could add in clauses from the clause library if they wanted to. Okay. Oh, sorry about that. 1 second. And here we go.
I think your screen might be froze, Chris.
Yep, sorry about that.
Oh,
Just
no worries.
logging in as our local user here. All right, so they've got the document checked out. Give me just a second. Need to make that change real quick. All right, so once they've made their changes, they can go ahead and check in the document. And they can tell you what they updated. And they can say, okay.
While comments there are not required, it's always a good idea to, put at least some amount of comments there to make sure you can it's clear what changes were done.
Yep, absolutely. So they can go ahead and click OK. And they have successfully checked in their changes. And what your internal reviewer will also be able to do is they can go ahead and click Done with Review. So if they're done with their review of the contract, they can click that. And they can say OK. And now they have successfully completed their review of the contract. So they can exit out of Word. They don't have to save it. And they're done. They don't have to do anything else. So if we go back into our other user's profile and we take a look at the contract and the review rounds, we see now this reviewer is done with their review, right? And we can go back into our attachments and we can go to our version history. And now we see the changes not only from ourselves, but we also see the changes that our internal reviewer did, right? So we can do a comparison and see their changes. So that's how it will work if your internal reviewer has the Jagger Word app. If they don't have the Jagger Word app, it's going to be a little bit different. So what they'll have to do, just similar to what you would have to do, is they'll have to save the document somewhere else and upload a copy of the document, and they'll have to manually mark it as done with review inside of this application. So let me show you what that looks like pretty quickly. I'll show you how an internal reviewer can interact with the system without the Jagger Word app. So I'll go ahead and search for a local user, and we'll select them, and we'll begin the round. And this time, we're not going to use the Jagger Word app, right? So let me go ahead and just refresh my screen. And we see, okay, here's the internal review I need to take care of. And what they'll do now is, again, they're going to check out the document. This time, they're going to go ahead and open the main document. And they'll enable editing. And they'll find the section of the contract record that they want to edit. So maybe they'll go down and say, oh, I want to adjust this warranty language here and just remove all of this. And now what they'd have to do is go ahead and save this onto their desktop somewhere, or save this somewhere on their computer or drive. Okay, and then after they saved it, they can go ahead and close this. What they would need to do is essentially go back into the attachment section and upload a new main document there. So your internal reviewer would go to attachments here. They would find the main document, go to actions, upload a new version, select the file, and after they've selected the file, of course, they can give you a comment. And click Save Changes. And then they would go back to their review round, and then they would check it in, and they would say, I'm done with my review. And done with review. And now they're all done. So they can go navigate away from the system. So now as the contract manager, if I refresh my screen here, we see that they're done with their review. So it's a little bit different experience with the Jagger Word app than it is without it. It's a little bit more convenient with the Jagger Word app. I mean, obviously you can open up the document, make the changes, check it in, and mark yourself all done with the review right from the Jagger Word app. Whereas if you don't have the Jagger Word app, you're kind of having to make the changes, save it somewhere else, navigate somewhere, upload it, and then go in and mark yourself done as a review. So always nice if your end users and your reviewers have the Jagger Word app. So that's the two ways that you can do it with and without the Jagger Word app. Let's take a look at an external review. So this is, I want to send the contract out to my my second party, my supplier, and have them redline the document. So to do that, you'll click Start External Review, and you'll click Add Reviewer, and you can put in their name, email address, title is optional, phone number is optional, and you can click Save. And when you're ready, you can go ahead and click Begin Round. Now you can add multiple external reviewers if you want to. And again, you can have multiple external review rounds. But we'll go ahead and just begin this round. And you can designate the documents that you want to send in the external review round. So if I don't want to send this FEMA writer, I can exclude it. You can adjust the from name, from email address, reply to, subject, and body of the message if you want to. So you can update that. And then when you're ready, you can go ahead and send the email. And to your supplier, this is just going to look like a normal email that they would receive from you asking you to review the contract, right? So they would log into their email server, or they'd get into their email account. They'd see the message come by. They would probably download the document, make changes, and then upload it. So just as an FYI, the system keeps track of all these external communications that you send out, including the external review rounds. So if we click into the Communications Center, and then we click on External, you'll see that this is one communication string that we've started. And we can click into this string, and this shows you all of the related messages for this email string, right? So this is the message that was sent out of the system to the supplier. Shows you the entire message there. So sometimes it can take just a little bit of time for that message to come over to the second party. So what I'm going to do is we're going to focus on some other areas really quickly, and then we'll get back into we'll get into the second party's experience of this in just a moment here. So here we go. We'll start sharing again. There we go. So let's take a look at some of the other areas really quickly. So first and foremost, users and contacts. This is something that you'll want to set up before you submit for approval. So when you're setting up your contract, you can have different people in the organization help you author your contract. So if you're working on this with other, some of the other universities in the system, you can add those other folks as contract managers, and they can help you draft the language of the contract without having to be internal reviewers, right? So that is an option that you have available to you. You can also add stakeholders. So the contract managers have full control over the contract, just like you do, whereas the stakeholders do not have full access to the contract, right? So your stakeholders can go in and view the contract, a limited amount of information of the contract, but they can't actually make changes to it. So if you have a subject matter expert you want to add as a stakeholder, you can go ahead and edit this and add them here if you wanted to. So if we open up users from workflow, we're going to see that the users from the workflow our users automatically have access to my contract just based on the workflow setup or the work group structure setup that we have in the tool. So essentially, anybody who has the role of contract manager or admin is going to have stakeholder access to your contracts, right? They'll be able to go in and search for them, but they won't necessarily be able to go in there and edit your contracts. So they've got a limited access, but not full access to it. If you ever wanted to make your contract confidential, what you could do is click this Make Confidential button, and then only the users that are listed up here and special users that have special permissions would have access to your contract. So if you ever need to make a contract confidential, you can just click this button and then it'll make it confidential. Under visibility controls, you can designate what stakeholders have access to. So if you only want them to see like a limited amount of information, you can save it as limited, and then you can preview what they would see on the contract summary page. So if we click on preview, they only get to see this amount of information, right? Whereas if we give them full access and we preview, now they would get to see, go ahead and save that real quick. Now they would get to see a lot more information when we do a preview, right? So now they would also be able to see like the attachments and stuff. So you get to dictate, what level of access your stakeholders would have based on this setting here. And then of course you can also designate external contacts. So if you want them to receive some of the notifications that come out of the system, you can add external contacts as well. So let's take a look at the notifications that come out of the system, other than obviously the obligations. So some of the notifications that can come out of the system, you can have start date notifications. You know, you have advanced and past, or when the start date occurs. You can notify people. You can notify people. There we go. That looks a little better. In advance of when the end date is going to pass, and also you can notify people of when the end date occurs. So this is one that we were talking about earlier, Yvonne. You wanted this end date advance notice. So this is what you would do. You'd go into this section here and you would check off this box to say, I want to notify my contract manager in advance of the end date. And you can go in here and say, I want to notify them 60 days in advance, and then 30 days in advance, and then 15 days in advance. So this is how you would set that up, Yvonne, is you would say, I do want to send the contract manager, and it's going to be this one here, an advance notice of the end date, and this is how many days out in advance I want them to be notified. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yep. So you can do that with any of these notifications. You can do it for the renewal dates as well. You can do it for the review date as well. So you can say, yeah, I want to send them a notification for the review, and I want it to go out to, you know, maybe the stakeholders and the contract manager, for instance. All right. So we'll go ahead and save that. And then under contract family, you can also set up a contract family. So you can link your contract, child contracts to this contract if you wanted to. So you just click the button to do that, and you would search for the contract, and then you would select it once you found it. All right, so let's take a look at our email and see if that email notification has come across. Give me just a second here. Hey, look at that. We got our email notification as our second party. So this is the email that they received. And of course, they can see the message that you've given them here, and they can go ahead and download this document. So let's do that now. We'll go ahead and download the document as if we're the supplier. And it's downloaded. And now your supplier can go ahead and make some changes to the document. So maybe they take a look at the document and they say, well, you know what, actually, I can't agree to this. So we're going to take out this entire clause. And then what they would do is, you know, obviously they just save this to their desktop or save it to a drive or wherever they want to save it to. Okay, and then after they save it, they're going to respond back to your message, of course. Okay, so they would attach the document. And once they have attached it, they'll go ahead and send it. All right, so now the supplier has successfully sent me back a copy of their updated verbiage. So we'll need to wait just a moment here for that to come across. While we wait for that, let's go ahead and set up our electronic signers in the tool. So now I'm back in as the contract manager, and I'm going to set up my electronic signers. So to do that, I'm going to click on e-signature here. And you're only going to see this page in the contract record if you said, yes, I want to use electronic signature on the header page. So if you said no there, this would not be visible at all. So from here, what I'm going to do, first and foremost, I need to check this document out so I can go ahead and make changes. And I'm going to go ahead and edit this. And from here, you can decide if you want your signers to sign sequentially or in parallel. So if you have more than one signer and you don't care what order they sign it, as long as they all sign it, then you're going to choose parallel. If you do care about what order they sign the contract, then you're going to choose sequential. And just FYI, for the near-term future, you're always going to select manual placement by contract manager. In the future, once we have your contract templates all built out and ready to go, in some instances, you'll be able to select automatic placement of the signature blocks. But for now, you'll need to select manual placement. Okay. And then you're going to add your signers. So go ahead and just click Add Signer. And you'll select the signers in the right order. So first, I'm going to add our second party as our first signer. And I'm going to manually enter them because I don't want to bug any of those real people. And I'll give myself a title. Save changes. And next, I'm going to add the second signer, which is going to be California State University. And I can select from a list of contacts we have built into the tool, or I can just manually enter my signer. Oops. Save changes. All right. Now that I have my signers set up, let's go back into the communication center and see if our message came back from our second party. And look at that, here it did. So now we see two messages. And I can see that the supplier has responded back to me. Hi, Chris, I've updated the contract and taken out language that we can't agree to. So what I can do now is under actions, I can compare their version of the document with my latest version of the document. And click compare. So now, again, it's going to do a comparison and it's going to show me the parts of the document that they changed, right? So they removed this entire section from rights and remedies. So what I can do, I've got a couple of options here. You know, I can continue on with Word and I can make my own adjustments if I need to. Or if I'm happy just accepting the changes that they've made, what I can do is just close this, go to actions, and I can add and update my main document and replace it with their version of the document. If I was not able to accept their changes, what I would do is I would just end the external review round, and I might send them a communication through the communication center saying, hey, we weren't able to accept your changes. You know, would you consider, you know, this change? And maybe I update the document and send it out to them, right? So there's multiple actions you can take here, but in this case, I'm just going to accept their changes. So I'm going to add and update the document. And we'll click save. And now I have replaced my version of the main document with what they had provided us. And now we can go to review rounds, and we'll just go ahead and say that we're done with the review. And done with review. And we're all set. So we've gone through 2 internal review rounds. We've gone through an external review round. We've seen how each of them can update the main document as necessary. So let's go ahead and submit this contract for approval. And we'll take a look at how the electronic signature application functions. So we'll go to contract actions and we'll go ahead and, oops, sorry, not contract actions. Sorry, let me move this. And we'll go ahead and submit this for approval. And we can give a message to our approvers, or we can just click submit for approval. And now we can view the contract. And what's going to happen if we click on approvals, the system is going to compile all the documents we put in the print to print with full contract into one single PDF document. So if we refresh the screen, you'll see the system does that pretty quickly. So here's that full PDF document. You can click on it and see it. And next, the system's going to wait for us to decide if we want to add ad hoc approvers. So if we need other people in the organization to review and approve the contract before it goes out for signature, we can do that here by going to Contract Actions and clicking on Add Ad Hoc Step. So I can add a couple of ad hoc approvals between this step and the signature robot to allow different people in the organization to review and approve the contract record with its fully finalized verbiage before it actually goes out for signature. So just keep that in mind. If you need reviewers to go in and update the language of the contract, you're going to do that in an internal review round. But if you need reviewers to just approve it after the verbiage has been finalized, you can add them in these ad hoc approval steps. In this case, I'm going to say that I don't need any ad hoc approval steps. So I'm just going to go ahead and approve the document. And then the system is going to automatically send out the document to the e-signature provider. So this would be like Adobe Sign or DocuSign. And if we refresh this in just a moment, we see that it's going to stop in this e-signature setup step. So if we had the template all built out and we had a regular number of signers, then we wouldn't even need this step. It would just automatically go out to the signers and have them sign the document. But again, if you are using manual placement of the signature blocks, you'll need to wait for this step and then go into contract actions and then launch the e-signature application. Okay, so as you can see for this contract, we're using Adobe Sign to place the signature blocks. And what I'll do is I'll scroll down and I'll find the area where I want the signers to sign the document. So continue to scroll down, and looks like I need them to sign right about here. Okay, so I can select the first party signers, and I'll go ahead and say I want, sorry, I know this is, that might be better. A little bit difficult to see here. So I'll go ahead and select the fields I want to put on here. So I'll say, okay, I want my second party to sign here. And I want their name on it as well. So I'm going to go under signer info and I'll put their name here. And I'll put their title here as well. And maybe I'll put their signature date here too. Okay, so this is all second party info, and then I'll select my first party, or my CSU party, and I'll put their signature blocks in as well. So I'll say, okay, they're going to sign right here, and their name is going to go here. Okay, and their title is going to go here as well. And maybe I'll put in their signature date too. Okay, so once I've got that all set up, I'm going to go ahead and click send. And that's going to start the e-signature process, right? So the system is going to start sending out the signature request to the signers. So if I click on e-signature, this is going to show me the status and order of the signatures, right? So it's going to show me, okay, this is the first signer, this is the second signer. If I refresh this, it's going to tell me the status, right? So if I go into that signer's signature block and I start signing the document, this will eventually update. So let me go into that signer's email box. And as you can see, here's the message that they receive. They need to review and sign the document. So we'll go ahead and click on this link. And of course, they can go ahead and click on start here, and it'll take them down to where they need to sign the document, and they can start signing. And when they're ready, they can go ahead and click to sign. And that signer has completed their signature of the contract, right? So now what I'm going to do is, and we can refresh this. This may take just a moment here. And so right now it shows as sent. In just a moment, it's going to update and show that they have successfully signed the contract. What I'll do is I'm going to go into the other signer's email client, and we'll take a look at how they can sign for the document as well. There it is. All right. So here we can see that this next signer needs to sign the document as well. One second. There it is. Sorry about that. Sorry, wrong email. Here's the signature here's the signature request from Adobe Sign. So they can click review and sign. And of course they can start. They can be taken down to where they need to sign. They can apply their signature. And when they're ready, they can click to sign as well. And we're all set there. Close this one out. And if we refresh this, like I said, it keeps track of where all the signatures are. So we see that this one is complete and this signer has been sent. And in just a moment, it's going to refresh. And what will happen is this signature block will, or this approval block will be marked as approved. And the status of the contract is going to change from out from signature to executed in future. And a copy of the fully signed and executed contract will be attached to this contract record. So with Adobe Sign, it usually takes just a minute. It takes a little longer with DocuSign. Yep. So now we've got our fully executed and electronically signed copy of the contract. So we can click View Contract here. And we can open up the PDF document. And of course, in production, it's not going to say test document. And if we scroll down to the bottom, we can see the signatures all in place. And of course, we can see the full audit report. All right, questions on that before I move over to a manually signed contract? How are we doing on time, Kurt?
We're doing okay. Yeah, we'll cut through this, then we're near the end. And as he does this, so part of what we'll be doing later on is we'll be loading existing contracts. So the scenario walkthrough now is we'll apply directly to loading those old contracts that have already been signed.
So I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and just make a copy of this one, and I'll use it to manually get a contract signed, just to make things a little faster and easier. In this case, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and select it as a services contract. Okay, and yeah, we'll call it. We'll copy it. So one thing I wanted to show you really quickly, and I'm going to keep this as fast as I can, but if you do use one of our pre-built templates, like we can for services, keep in mind this pre-built template is not one that we would use in production. It's just to show you the capabilities of the tool. It's not anything you need to test or anything like that. But essentially, if we use a pre-built template, then we can pull in information from the contract record and put it into the template, right? So if I open up this main document template, so a couple things you'll note here, like it can automatically populate in our contract number, our second party name, our scope of work is another example. So just note that as we build out these templates in the future, they can automatically populate information in from the contract header that we set up. So just kind of keep that in mind, you know, the power of contract templates in the future as we come up with those templates. So I'm going to quickly just select some options for this this record here. So I can go ahead and submit it for approval without electronic signature, just to show you that process. Okay, so I'm going to say no to that. And actually, I'm going to make the start date today. All right, so I'll go ahead and submit this approval. Okay, we'll view the contract. And now if we go into approvals here, I'm just going to approve it through. And if you're doing a manually signed contract or a contract that was signed outside of this document, you're going to get this upload signed document step here. And in this step, you're going to go to contract actions and you're going to upload the fully executed contract. So you can either upload a file that was of the executed contract, or if you had done that previously, you can just use the full PDF if you want to, and you can designate the executed date and save changes. And that's essentially how you can upload a contract that was signed outside of the system. So that's another option. So another thing that we've been asked previously was around searching and amending. So I can show you that process here pretty quickly. To search for contracts, again, if you're on the home page, you can search for contracts based on that widget here. So if you know the name of the contract, or the number of the contract, you can search for it. Another way you can do that is through contracts in the left-hand menu, and you can search for contracts here too. And then you can search by contracts by all of this content in the advanced search. So you can switch between simple search and advanced search here. But one thing you'll want to make sure and do is you'll want to make sure that active for shopping is all. And you'll want to make sure under the advanced search that under by start and end date, you choose all and not effective. So that's just something we'll give you a heads up on. So I'm going to quickly just search for a contract that's executed and in effect. And I'm going to show you how you can quickly make an amendment to it. So here I found a contract that's executed in effect. So I can click on this. If I need to make an amendment, I can go to contract actions. And then let me check this in real quick. And I can amend the contract. And what I would do is, you can go in and make changes to the metadata if you want to. And you could update a brand new, you could update the documentation. So you could upload a new version of the main document. And then when you're done making your changes, you can go ahead and submit it for approval. And if you chose electronic signature, you could have the amendment electronically signed, or you could say, no, I don't want to do electronic signature. And then once it gets fully compiled and electronically signed, what's going to happen is it's going to have a new version of the document. So I'm going to we're running out of time here, so I'm going to expedite through all these steps just for now. But I just want to show you really quickly what it's going to look like in the end state, right? So now we've got this contract record, and there are two versions, right? The old version and the new version. So if we take a look at that, if we go search for this contract in the future, it's going to show one version that was superseded and one in effect. So that's how it's going to work. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing, and I'll pass it back over to you, Kurt.
Sorry, that was struggling to find my mute or the unmute. So thanks, Chris. That was a excellent walkthrough as always. Let me go ahead and have a couple points. We may have a few minutes for questions as well. So what's coming? So cutover tasks. So our key dates are Monday. We'll be live in production. So we'll have, and for those who are already using Jagger Marketplace, it'll be the same. That's the same application. So you'll just have additional menu items available as of Monday. The direction we're being given is that starting next week, all new contracts should be loaded in should not be loaded in CalUsource anymore, and we should go into Jagger. Just as just a reminder, there's a hard cutoff of CalUsource is going away at the end of the year. So some points on the transition for a number of reasons that are listed here. We don't need to get into. We won't be doing a automatic conversion of existing contracts into CSUBUY. There's a variety of reasons for that. So what we'll need to do, and we'll have some additional, we'll have a job A worked out for it, recapping the steps Chris just went through. But we'll need to, over the next couple months, have folks extract contracts from CalUsource that they do want to bring into Jagger and load them manually into Jagger as effectively as pre-signed contracts. So each campus is kind of on their own to figure out which of those they do want to move over. And again, the chancellor's office is available to assist. But they do need to be extracted before the end of the year. Requesting a new supplier. So one of the first things Chris did go through was there is a request form linked on the contracts homepage to request a new supplier. And as he said, that is an interim process. So assuming we get to phase 3, they all have full supplier management, where suppliers will register and input all their information, etc. But for now, in order to keep the supplier master somewhat clean or clean-ish in preparation for that effort, we are going to centralize adding new suppliers. We did pre-seed the system with a few hundred suppliers. Again, those are based on suppliers, the top suppliers from the last year, as well as suppliers with existing open contracts. But again, they won't have contacts or addresses, but the suppliers won't be there. If there are any suppliers, let's see, the suppliers are also in tests. So to the extent you get in the test environment, you see suppliers that are not there that you think you'll need early on, let us know at the CO, and we can get those added in ahead of time as well. There's no change to the CFS onboarding for suppliers. This is an admittedly an additional step, again, an interim step to get them in Jagger. Some of the basics around search, just to call out, and this is an important step. Chris did highlight it when he went through it, but this is it gets us every time. So it's just due to the way the Jagger application defaults the first time you do a contract search. It may seem like the contracts aren't there, and there's two key fields. So, and again, it's the active for shopping flag. That attribute doesn't make a lot of sense right now. However, once we get e-procurement rolling, you'll have suppliers are designated either active for shopping or not, and that's really so to enable you to have suppliers that you're not doing any POs with them, you're not making payments to them yet. You're just simply interacting with them for potentially sourcing or creating a contract in the early stages. So that's how that's designated. That does out of the box, like I said, whenever someone logs in, that is checked. And then the effective date as well is defaults to a start and end date. So that's our tip. The first time you go in, and when we send it, we'll final go live communication on Monday with another reminder of that. Again, that'll make sure your search results make sense. The nice thing is it is a sticky search, so the first time you change those defaults, they'll hold. So next time you log in, it doesn't, it'll still hold. It'll always hold your last selections. So you have to do that once. Searching for parent contracts, system-wide or child contracts. So you can search by name, work group. We also have the field that's designated as a multi-campus or single campus. So there's numerous ways to search for those. We encourage you to explore all the search options you want. And then the last point on contract numbering. Again, those contract numbers are system generated and will be going forward. But there is also the contract name, which is free form. There will be some guidelines posted out to the CSU procurement webpage with guidelines for those names, but again, there's no hard and fast validation for it. These are tips and tricks. Again, I'll send this deck out to the group so everyone has it as well. Just reminders of the topics that Chris went through. And tools and support. This is a big one. So once we're live, how will it be supported? So we are, again, going with our approach of getting the system out there and live and developing over time with additional library items and such. We'll be offering, we're calling office hours. So those invites will go out here today. That we got the placeholder set, but the folks from Rise Now will be online to assist as people start creating new contracts. So we found success with that during some of the early stages of testing. And again, it's to provide, so you guys don't, you're not on your own right off the bat. After we're live, we are around to help. So we're going to continue those for the next couple months. So as you get to the point, you may not be doing contracts right away. So, if there is some time between now and when your first contract, your author is, there'll be support. And like we said, the first one you create, definitely, take advantage of that. We also have training materials. We're in the process of revamping the internal CSUBUY webpage. And so that is being built out over time as well. We have a full slate of quick reference guides that we will send a link out to you after today's call. And then we also have our change folks, Beth and Stephanie from Rise Now. They're always lurking in the background, pulling out key points from meetings and developing an excellent inventory of FAQs and responses. So they'll also harvest that out of the chats and questions. And those will be continuing to be updated as they come in. And we're also making short video clip walkthroughs for various components. And that's both for CSU folks as well as suppliers. First line of support should be your CPR. They've been involved in this longer. They've participated in a couple weeks of additional testing, and they've had hands-on experience. The other way is, if all else fails, you can ask for help through ServiceNow. And here is the way we're contacting. So if that's the way to get, I believe this routes to David and Claire's team. So if you have an issue you want to route through ServiceNow, that is another approach as well. Questions and next steps. I know this is a lot, but like I say, office hours are going to be ongoing. Those invites will come out. We got about 6 minutes left. Do we want to field any questions? Someone's got a question. Who's got questions? Mary, you're out there. Throw a question for us.
Not really a question, but more of a comment for the
All
folks
right.
call. Because a lot of them, this is probably the first time they've seen this. We've been in this testing environment for quite a while now. I recommend that when you're ready to do your first contract, definitely do the office hours. Kurt and Chris can walk you through the entire step. I've been in it for a while, but on my first contract, I plan on using the office hours and have the guys just monitor me and walk me through it as well. So I really recommend the office hours to everybody. They've been really beneficial and very helpful.
And also, like I say, and we'll send the links to those. We also have many recordings of both today's training as well as a couple other best of Chris Jones shows where he's walked through contract creations, and that's available for everyone as well. Question in chat: how long will tests be open? Testing the test environment will be ongoing, so that will be available for a foreseeable future. So it is the same test environment we use for Marketplace, and it will continue to. We may lock it out periodically toward the end of the year, early next year, as we work on some new configurations for Phase 3. But barring that, it'll be available. Locations for recordings and guides, those I'll defer that to Claire. So we have a Rise Now SharePoint site we've been using, but it's been cumbersome to administer, get access. So we're putting documents and recordings out on Claire and David's webpage.
Yeah, it's the Contract Services and Procurement webpage at Chancellor's office. There is a page for CSUBUY that has the recordings and quick reference guides on it.
Yep, and then I'll be sending out an email that has the links to all those places.
We'll also send a link to the production environment in case there's any users who don't have that. We actually somehow neglected that in yesterday's training. We never mentioned actual production.
And I see a question about desktop guides. Yeah, that's what we're calling QRG, quick reference guides. There will be quick reference guides for the different functions.
Yep.
And then,
yeah, we also have available. We can also make available. There's some. It's actually pretty detailed and long, but we have some standard Jagger contract training material as well that we can post. Agreement, can we obtain agreement numbers for MOUs and load them? David, I'll defer to you on that one.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that question means, Tammy. If you wouldn't mind coming off mute, I can think what that may mean is to maybe when we import a contract, can we use the contract number instead of the auto-generated number? Is that what you're asking?
No, can you hear me? What I'm
Yeah.
asking is, like, we have MOUs or leases or things like that we track as well. Can we just get a number and then just store them in this database, or no?
Get a number. What's
a generated number that falls in line.
Oh yeah. You can. That's just a manual upload of a contract. We're MOUs, any type of agreement that you want to track. This is the place for it.
Perfect. Thank you.
And MOUs is a type in there. We don't have a template for MOU. I think campuses are using the various MOUs templates. But if we can come as a system and agree on a standard template, we're happy to put that in there. It saves the work for a lot of folks. What we're going live with Monday is goods and services. We're still having some small side groups fleshing out final details for construction contracts, leases, auxiliaries, student agreements, and then having also some side conversations around IT agreements, whether or not we should keep those under goods and services or have a standalone IT. But we're going to try to get that sorted out by the end of the week.
So, Tamara, should you do one of your leases probably in office hours? It would probably benefit everybody too to watch you get the guys help you upload one in the
Sure
tool.
Sure.
Yeah.
You mean one that's already completed? Because yeah, we can do that, certainly. And is office hours, will that be provided to us, how to contact them?
Yeah, we'll have invitations going out. So we've got placeholder, but yeah. It'll
be a Zoom link that anybody can join if they have questions,
good.
comments, or want help walking through the system.
Good, thank you.
And if we run out of time, we can and it's something urgent, we can schedule some side time to finish what needs to be done.
Absolutely.
I had a quick question. This is James from San Diego State.
Yeah.
For supplier, you guys had mentioned a new supplier in the CSUBUY, but if we normally have, let's say we're an Oracle and then we need a supplier file for that, can we take the CSU supplier file, the PDR, the standard 204 form, and use the COs, or do we have to still go to the vendor again and get one for our campus?
So for this phase, we're not collecting 204s. We're not collecting a lot of that. This is not in this phase. It's not intended for payment. It's intended just to set up a supplier for creating a contract or doing a sourcing event with. In the third phase, should we get approval in January to proceed with that, we'll have a full integration into Oracle and PeopleSoft, and there's a supplier management track that we're going to be looking at creating a single vendor master for the whole CSU, with suppliers being able to self-register and maintain their profile, including 204 information in a single platform or in the supplier management module. So that's coming soon, but not now. Now it's the same way that we were doing CaluSource. It's just the supplier database is rather limited information just for sourcing and contracts.
Okay, thank you. And I have one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
So in the review rounds, is legal going to be on this too? Say if they change the general provisions and then we want them to be in it. They're all on board too right now. Is that?
They're not on board yet because we haven't trained them. My assumption would be that, depending on how responsive or tech savvy your campus council is, we're going to do a training for legal. That's actually on our plan, on our roadmap. We haven't done that for them yet, but that would mean that they would have to get the Word app. We have to train them on how to use the system. But it would be ideal if they would be willing to do that. So yes, we are going to try to get all legal OGC on a training and train them how to do this. Also, I would say that for IT as well, if you have ATI folks or data security folks, at some campuses they're the same. The review rounds, internal reviews could be for that as well.
Okay, and then also for risk management, will most of these go to the CO risk management, or does it go to campus, or it depends on what type of contract it is?
Depends on what type of
System-wide versus-
contract is it. If it's a
Okay.
campus contract, you would handle it just the way you do internally now.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, that's why we're, when we showed those review rounds, that's why we, there are not any automatic triggers right now. So again, everyone knows, where things need a route. So we're, you can use it, just route them appropriately using those ad hoc review rounds.
Yeah, we made everything ad hoc and didn't automatically hard code, reviews, because in certain situations you may not need it, and we didn't want to tie, everybody into having to go through a mandatory review when it wasn't necessary. It just creates a lot of trouble.
Yeah, overly complicates it. Stay nimble.
Now in the future, I mean, if we find that something has to be, there's 100%, there's no exceptions that it has to go through some sort of workflow, we can certainly put in mandatory workflows depending on the type of contract. But for now, we elected to go with the ad hoc approvals and reviews. Both.
Exactly.
All right. I guess if there aren't any more questions, we're happy to take more, but we can call a meeting and enjoy the rest of your day.
And so the other guy, we do have additional training session this week. So should you want to attend one more time, you're absolutely more than welcome. Again, sometimes repetition helps, and it's worth you to join because you just really enjoy new contract systems.
Yeah, you're all more than welcome to join another session if you feel like you need to have this sink in again. I did send out the calendar invites as ICS attachments. You can add it from there. If you were unable to attach or add that to your calendar, send me an email and I'll just forward you the invite directly, and that should put it right on your calendar.
Thank you.
All right, Kurt, you want to count us down?
I think we're good. Yeah, so look for an email later today. Will come from Claire Smith with the links and the deck from today, and then so we'll get invites for office hours out shortly. And that's it. Go forth and contract.
Thank you.